So the summer transfer window opens in just 3 days' time, and as ever, it feels like a massive transfer window for Manchester United. One that I don't think we can physically afford to get wrong. The recruitment has to be right this year, and I thought today I'd tell you how I would do it. Now, before we actually get into looking at profiles and actual players that I think we should sign, some context is needed. First of all, how much do Manchester United even have to spend? Well, the rumours are, recently, that we have £125 million plus whatever we can generate in player sales. Now, I don't know exactly how true that is, but if you imagine we can sell someone like Rashford for 40 million, Garnacho, Anthony for 25, 30, perhaps Sancho for 20 million, I'm gonna guess United have just over £200 million to spend this summer. And I will say, I don't think we need as big a squad as what we would usually have. Normally, because of European football, you might need to go and sign 6 players to fill the Manchester United squad. However, through having less games, we probably only need 4 or 5. So let's look at who I like the look of. So the first player isn't necessarily a suggestion that I'm putting forward, it's a player that I'm pretty sure will be playing for Manchester United next season, and that is Cunha from Wolves. That transfer looks pretty much done. So in my opinion, there is no point sitting here talking about a rebuild and not including Cunha, because he is going to be in the Manchester United team. Now today I'm not really going to talk about his skill set or anything like that, just because we've covered it so much recently. There will be another video when he officially signs, so I don't really feel there is a need to talk about Cunha anymore. What we are going to do instead is go through the rest of the team and look at some of the weak positions. Now, in defensive areas, I think United have enough players. I know someone like Lisandro Martinez has an injury, but we've got players like Harry Maguire, we've got Mazraoui, we've got players from the academy as well. I feel as though we've got enough centre-backs for this season now, so I think we're safe in that area. However, the obvious area that we need to address is in the centre of midfield. Partly because Casemiro has been huge for us in the second half of the season, but there's a chance he leaves this summer. And also Manuel Ugarte, when he plays, I'm just not a huge fan of him as a player. And more importantly, it's his profile I'm not a huge fan of in the current Manchester United team. So I think we need a new central midfielder. And the problem is, we need a near perfect profile, right? We need someone who is tall and physical and combative, can do a lot of good defensive work, because United have been quite poor defensively this season. So we need a player that can do all of that work, that can make up the ground, particularly if you're playing next to Bruno Fernandes. You need someone more physical, but also we need technical quality as well, right? We can't just have a big guy in midfield who can't play with the ball. We need technical footballers. We need someone who can take the ball under pressure, who can play in the first phase, who can carry the ball forward and be a good passer. And that's why you can see this is a bit of a problem, because we're pretty much asking for the near perfect footballer. Very difficult to find, so I thought what I would do is look at this from a statistical point of view. I went to Europe's top 5 leagues and looked at dribble percentage, I looked at ground duel percentage, and I also looked at pass completion percentage. Now, stats aren't perfect, but it's a decent way of trying to find some players. And a name popped up that I am already very familiar with. Nmecha from Borussia Dortmund. I think he might be the answer to our problems in the midfield this summer. Now, he wouldn't be cheap, but I think he could be the ideal player to come in and play this position. In terms of price, I don't know exactly. Should we guess around 50 to 60 million pound? I don't know exactly. Perhaps I'm miles off with that. But I think he could really be an answer for Manchester United this summer. This season, for Borussia Dortmund, he's played as more of a 6. Previously in his career, he was sort of a box-to-box midfielder. He was a dribbler. He was a ball carrier. Someone who would drive forward with the ball quite a lot. This season, he has dropped into more of like a deep-line playmaker role, and he has been someone that has dictated the play very often for Borussia Dortmund. Very often playing as a solo midfielder, like literally by himself in the midfield. That's the sort of player that Manchester United need, because we've seen, particularly in recent weeks, a United team changing shape slightly. We see United go into this back 3, but then a solo pivot, with Bruno Fernandes playing a little bit higher, in line with the 2 inside forwards and the wing-backs. Finding a player that can play this position by themselves is very, very difficult, but I think Nmecha might be the one that can do it. Technically, he's a very strong player. I would say press resistant. I would say press resistant in the first phase. I think he's really, really comfortable under pressure. I think he's a good dribbler, a good ball carrier. He's got a really good stride length, which allows him to sort of just drive through the middle of the pitch. And also, upper body, he's got a big frame. So you'll see very often defenders just try and like drag him down in the centre of the pitch, but he's just too strong, and he sort of shrugs them off and sort of carries on driving forward through the pitch, which is what United needs, someone who can protect the ball in the middle. But also, I think his passing range is really, really underrated, particularly his long forward passing, you know, the clipped balls over the top. If we're trying to replace Casemiro's skill set, That's what we need. Casemiro in the second half of the season has been a really useful progressive player for us, and I think Nmecha might be the one for me that can replace that. Now, the next player that we need is someone for the wide zones, and this is a little bit tricky because of the style and the formation, I guess, that Manchester United use. There is a hesitancy, I think, in the United fan base to go and sign an out-and-out wing-back, a wing-back specialist, but there's also concerns about signing inside-forward specialists, because should we ever change formation, then we get a little bit stuck with squad building, right? So I think the solution for me is actually to go for a technical profile rather than a tactical fit. So I think what we should be looking at is someone who, again, has great physicality and great athleticism. Ruben Amorim has spoken a lot about the intensity of the United team, the physicality, and the need to improve it. So I think that's what we need in these wide positions. For me personally, I like the idea of signing a winger that can play either as an inside forward and a 10, or as a wing back, and if they can do it on both sides, that would be amazing. For me, that's the sort of profile that we should be looking for. Someone that can just up the level of the team. Personally, I always think United should have wingers, players that can excite you, players that can take the ball, drive at defenders, and beat them. And for me, again, the solution is rather expensive, but fortunately, I think we have over 200 million to spend. But I think the solution might be Semenyo. Now, previously, when Semenyo has been thrown into the conversation about Manchester United, I think the talk has been playing as an inside forward, playing as a 10, close to goal. He's had up there with the most shots in the Premier League this season, so it makes sense to get him into those positions. If not those positions, he's been mentioned as a right wing back, but I'm actually going to suggest something a little bit different. I think there is a gap on the left-hand side of the pitch in the left wing back position for Semenyo. Now, I know we only recently signed Dorgu, and I think he's done pretty well. I think he's done a good job so far. However, he's still very young. I don't think there is a need to pressure Dorgu. I don't know that right now he has to be a first-team regular, someone that starts week in, week out for Manchester United. I don't think that's needed. Dorgu is perfect, in my opinion, as a backup wing-back on both sides of the pitch. It makes him a great squad player. But if he's going to be a squad player, you need someone ahead of him. And I think Semenyo can be that. Semenyo is incredibly effective with the ball, a great ball carrier, a great dribbler. And that's probably why the price tag, again, will be reasonably high. Can you get him for £60 million? I don't know, but I would be trying to. Because I think he's phenomenal. I think he's a great player. He's one of my favourite players in the Premier League to watch. His ability to get separation away from a defender is magnificent, and it's what Manchester United have been crying out for. How many times this season have we spoken about, United struggling to progress the ball through the middle of the pitch, so we're forced into wide zones, and then in wide zones, we've struggled with the power, the athleticism, 1-versus-1 ability to actually be a fullback. Semenyo addresses all of those problems. He addresses all of those problems. In terms of his link-up with Cunha, that could be absolutely frightening down the left-hand side, because both of them can go both ways, and both of them are really underrated with their linking work. So Cunha can spin wide into the left channel as Semenyo drives inside, but should Cunha want to operate in those central zones more regularly, then Semenyo will be happy to play in wider positions and look to isolate fullbacks and attack them. I think, just all round, this is an amazing way of taking a slightly stale Manchester United team this season, right, and making it more entertaining, making it more exciting, but also importantly, making it more effective. Semenyo is a player that will score goals. If you're also adding Cunha to that as well this summer, that's goal output instantly increasing at United. Now, I do just have one more position that I want to talk about with my rebuild for Manchester United this summer, and you will notice that is only 4 players. That is because I want you guys to have a say with the 5th player in the comments down below. Now, again, I don't know exactly how much money we've got. No one does, right? But again, the rumours are 125 million plus what we can sell. We've got a lot of players that we can sell for once. We don't normally have that. It's important that United get the right prices for them. But the last position that I want to talk about is the striker position, because quite frankly, we haven't scored enough goals this season. We haven't done very well in the final third. Granted, we haven't created enough for the likes of Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee, but when we have, we haven't seen enough. And I think what United need, again, is going to be those buzzwords: athleticism, physicality, intensity, someone who can handle themselves, someone who can play 1v1 up against some of the biggest, strongest centre-backs in the Premier League and look after the ball. But also, not just look after the ball and keep it safe and, keep possession, but also stretch the opposition, get in behind, play on the shoulder, get in the final third and take these defenders into channels where they don't really want to go. What I would love at United this summer is a striker who just makes life difficult. We all thought Rasmus Højlund was going to be that. And to tell the truth, I still think he can. I still think he can with the right coaching. But recently he hasn't been, right? I think Højlund has been quite easy to play against because his first touch is often poor, and physically even, he's been quite easy to deal with up front. Manchester United need to change that. And I think the obvious solution for this position is Liam Delap. Now, at the time of recording, the conversation is that it's sort of between Chelsea and Manchester United, so this is a difficult deal to get done because we don't have European football next season, so it may be difficult to persuade him. But for £30 million, getting yourself a player with Premier League experience up front is huge. Now, you will notice I didn't say Premier League proven, and the reason for that is because he has only played one season in the Premier League. You know, this isn't like we're signing a guy who has played 3 seasons and bagged 20 goals in each of those campaigns. He's not exactly a proven Premier League striker, but he does have Premier League experience, which is still important. He's a homegrown talent for £30 million. I think it's a market opportunity, and sometimes you have to take those opportunities. And what you may see with what I'm trying to create here is a balance. I have been slightly concerned about the balance with some of the Manchester United targets. I think on the ball and off the ball, this team is very nicely balanced, alright? So let me just quickly talk through this for a second. It might be a little bit boring, but I don't care. First of all, we're going to look at, on the ball, Manchester United's ability to play out in the first phase. How many times have I said, I don't want to see my middle centre-back going into midfield, right? I've said it time and time again. I think if you play this team, you can get players into incredibly natural positions. So let's say our goalkeeper has the ball, and maybe that's a position you'll want to change. Let me know in the comments. It's 2 centre-backs, split either side, Yoro and De Ligt. More than happy with that. Lisandro Martinez can move to a left-hand side to play left-back. This is just on goal kicks in the first phase, by the way. It's nothing crazy. Dalot can drop into this position on the right-hand side, or it could be Dorgu. But it makes sense, right? We've got centre-backs in the middle, we've got a full-back out wide. Lisandro Martinez not in his best position, but he's comfortable out there. He can play there. You've then got 2 central midfielders receiving in the middle of the pitch. You've got Cunha playing in the 10 position, 2 wingers, and a striker. It just makes sense. In terms of a little bit higher up the pitch, again, I think we've got balance. For me, the goal should be for Manchester United to get into this shape as often as possible, because I think we look much better when we're in this shape. So that's the 3 at the back, the solo pivot, and then sort of 3 10s almost, right? Having progressive centre-backs, Lisandro Martinez and Lenny Yoro would be huge for that. Having a central midfielder who can hold their own as a solo pivot, who has passing range, but can also protect the ball, is perfect for that. But then these 3, in the 3-10 positions, just feels like absolute magic to me. Ahmad, Bruno Fernandes and Cunha is simply phenomenal. And then out wide, we've got real pace and power with Dalot and Semenyo. Of course, Semenyo is the bigger 1-versus-1 threat. Perhaps in an ideal world, you would have a winger on the other side as well, although maybe it's then just a little bit too attacking. But I think the dynamics, the understandings can be really good, because on both sides of the pitch, we've got players that can go both ways. And the big thing for me is that Bruno Fernandes can get himself into an advanced position in the centre and have a license to move. So sometimes drop deeper into the double pivot, sometimes move wider. You're giving Bruno Fernandes the keys almost in the middle of the pitch to do a little bit of everything. And then up front, we've got that striker who can be combative, who can make life difficult for the opposition. On the ball, of course, it would take time, but I think there's a really nice balance here. And off the ball as well. Now, off the ball this season, the big criticism of Ruben Amorim and his United team is that the team has been too passive, that we drop into a back 5 rather than a back 4. If you're dropping into a 5 rather than a 4, you got less players in these areas here, so it's more difficult to get pressure on the ball, which means it tends to be easier for the opposition to build possession and move forward. In an ideal world, we want to change that. We want United to be a team that play on the front foot, and that includes defensively. And the big conversation is trying to find the ability to switch into more of a 4-4-2 defensively to get more pressure on the ball. It's a shape that most teams use these days because it's really, really effective. Can Manchester United achieve that with this lineup? I think we can. If you're trying to move to a 4-4-2, you move Cunha forward from the left-hand side into the front 2. There's less running work for him in this position, which suits him because he isn't the hardest working player I've ever seen, to be honest. That allows Semenyo to come forward from left wing back into this position. So now you can see our front 2 and then our 4 across here. But importantly, the profiles that we're left with at the back still suit the system. We've got 2 centre-backs in the middle, Dalot at right back, and Lisandro Martinez. This could also be a Luke Shaw or an Aiden Heaven on the left side of defence. All in all, you know, I think it creates a really nice balance. Of course, there are still question marks over Bruno Fernandes' best position. Is he a central midfielder or is he a 10? I think we're going to see him deeper next season, and if that is the case, that is how I would build the team to get the best out of pretty much everyone while sticking to Ruben Amorim's philosophy and his ideas. But that's how I would do it. Now it's time for you guys to have your say in the comments down below. What do you make of these signings? Is it too expensive? Could we get someone even better? Any changes that you would make? And also, if you could add one more signing, let's say for £25 million, who would it be? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, I believe we're finished for today. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.